Mac out of town!
Welcome back to Retro Wednesday, the Titanium Hanger. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about the original G1 Metroplex. Now, there's a lot going on with Metroplex, like Toys making a huge masterpiece version of it, and then of course there's the ever popular and elusive 30th anniversary one, the very first Titan from Hasbro. But this is where it all began. We're going to take a look at this coming up. So let's start by looking at the companion pieces so we can kind of get that out of the way, but we're going to be using a lot of these parts throughout this. So this is the 6-gun. We will break it down here in just a second. This one is the Slammer, and this one is Scamper. Now we've seen these remade modern iterations most recently. This one, of course, was an inclusion with the Metroplex in the Generations 30th anniversary. This one they recently made in like the Kingdom line or something along those lines, and then we got this one I think in Siege. So looking at it, starting over here with the Scamper, it is basically just a car with his arms clipped on the top and his little bitty gun. I leave it in his hand. I thought I lost it, but I guess I'm glad I found it. So we can take those off, untab those, fold this up, fold this down, and then clip his arms on. Whichever direction you feel like putting them on. They are different, so they're not exactly the same. And so you have a left and right. So there it goes. I think I might have them on backwards. Who knows? But still. Interesting looking guy right there. Over here, Slammer doesn't do much, but he does have a cannon that comes off, which this thing is actually really hard to find. And then you have this piece here that folds up in the transformation mode. So it's really just a tank. It's kind of cool we have a modern iteration of that. And the 6-gun breaks down into a whole bunch of different pieces. And what it really is kind of like a satellite. And then you clip on these guns. Come on, get off there. Breaking them down as components. Now, I do want to say, these two guns are exactly the same. And then, of course, you get this gun. And then these are different. So these guns are different. And then he also has his own gun on his arm gun thing. But as you can see, these are like reversed parts. So when you go to looking for one of these, make sure that you don't have two of the exact same one, or you just won't be right. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. So that's the individual components. We're going to use this throughout. So let's go ahead and rebuild this guy so you can kind of see it. And you do have to take his missiles off. You can't have 6-gun with the missiles because of the way it's designed, which I think is kind of a silly idea, silly design. But anyhow, go back to putting his arms on and build him up. And we'll count his guns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus number 7. Or is this double barrel counted as one gun? Okay, so we're going to start with the base mode. I think this is probably the absolute best mode for Metroplex, the G1 version. And it really does include a lot of play factor. You can put a lot of figures in there and do a whole lot with it. So with that, it's actually pretty cool. Now, these leg pieces here, I don't know what you exactly call them, but like a lot of people call them knee covers or whatever. So if this is just left there, you can just transform it from bot mode to this mode, leave those in place. Now they do take a different position in the next mode, but for this one you can just kind of leave them in place, and which kind of makes sense. And in my mind, I never really thought of the third mode so much, but that's kind of cool. Now there's a lot of features with this and a lot of different ways to set it up, and I will show you that a lot of people show this collapsed and this up like so. Well, I'm missing a sticker there on that one, but I don't like that look myself so much. So I'm going to flip it around. And there's that. Now, there's a couple things you can show this back piece over here. If let me raise this up a bit. And there's the gun sticking out of it. Or you could just show another tower. So there's just different varying ways to display this, and I've seen so many different setups, and it's kind of crazy. Now the transformation on this is actually pretty simple too. You just rotate an arm to the back, flip it upside down, fold this open, lay his legs flat, and fold them open. It's not a terribly difficult transformation. Now we also have this folds down to reveal some more guns, vac metalized. I like the vac metalized stuff. You can actually shoot the Scamper out here. So that's really cool too. So there's a lot of play value to this, and it was a pretty good toy. Now, it originated as a Diaclone and a Scramble City. Now, I'm not actually going to show the Scramble City aspect in base mode. I'll show it in bot mode here in a little while. But I did find a picture. There's a lot of pictures online about it. And I'm a little terrified in transforming some of those into that mode. But it explains kind of why the ramps are there. If you see on the left and the right lower, why the ramps are there for Silverbolt and for some of these other ones. So I never knew that back in the day. Like, why do they include a ramp? I didn't get it. But now I do, and now it makes sense. And they're all like little service stations and stuff. Kind of cool, I guess. Now this guy here is out of place, but zooming in, we have a nice little helicopter, helipad, which is cool. We have 6-gun working as kind of like a satellite radar dish kind of deal. And then over here, we have little bays where we can fix up the figures and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of feel this is mostly set to be for mini bots. It also works relatively well because of the Scramble City aspect. It works relatively well with maybe combiners. Throwing some combiner scale figures here, here, here. They kind of work, and I always kind of felt like those were too small. I didn't really realize that all this was kind of designed around the same time with the same idea, and they sort of scale well together and they work well together. So next up we have this attack mode, and I'm not a huge fan of this mode. I never was, and it's simply folding his legs back and folding this out, and then just moving his arms to the side. Yeah, it's a kind of, I don't know, in my opinion, it's kind of like a cheap cop-out, but it's still utilized today whenever they make these. So they use all 3 modes whenever one of these is getting made, and that's kind of where that came from. So it's one of those things that in my mind, it's like, what could you make up a new mode? Could you just continue making up new modes with these figures? But still, it is, I guess, a triple changer if you think about it like that. But a couple of different things, though, that you can do with this, and if you have these leg pieces in here, well, they're really hard to get out once you've clipped them in like that. Just try not to clip them in all the way. But you could sort of put the guns right here also and have the guns there, or you can have them down here. So a little bit of variation with this. Yeah, but this mode, it kind of rolls around. It does its thing. Maybe you could come up with some reason for it, but it's there. It's a mode. I figure I'd show it. Let's move on to the robot mode. So with the robot mode, there are a couple of interesting pieces to it. This doesn't go here, and I guess I don't have enough of the knee pieces. Let me get another knee piece on there. So I do want to admit that once you armor him up, he does look pretty cool. I mean, he's not like super impressive, definitely not by today's standards, but he does look pretty cool overall because of the fact that he's got all these guns, all this armor. I like the vac metalized chrome here. Now, some of them don't have vac metalized chrome, so that is an issue there too. But it is a cool looking figure overall, and I do kind of like it, but I feel like it's too short. It's about the same height as a blaster, as a G1 blaster, so that tells you that it's a little too short to be a true city bot. But at the end of the day, this was originally designed as Diaclone, as its own thing, and it really wasn't scaling. Scale is not something that was considered in G1 very well. That I thought was strange about this figure was that you have this tower that kind of goes in and out of the arm on this side. Now on this side, it unclips and clips in. So I thought that was strange all along. And just kind of in my mind, like why not have it that way on both of them? I know this rotates around and slides around, but I still just didn't get it. I was like, why does it not have the same function? They look exactly the same, but this piece gets lost pretty easy because it disconnects, and I don't think any one of these is missing that, so that's kind of crazy too. Now, I look at this piece on the back here as kind of just storage, and the gun is just storage, and you can flip it around and just hide it away if that's something you want to do. So again, in bot mode, there are options. In all the modes, there are multiple different options, which is pretty cool and makes this a pretty cool figure overall. Now, when it comes to the gun and the tips, they don't fire on the US version. I don't know if the Encore fires or not. I guess they took the springs out to meet US regulations and that kind of stuff, which sort of sucks, actually. That does sort of suck. But Anyhow, there are a lot of stickers on this thing, like right here on the side, here, over here. I don't know if they were applied properly, but all mine have the stickers in about the same spots, so I assume they're applied properly. We've got some electronics looking stuff going there, some toes, red on the sides. The stickers do make it look so much better. It would be super boring and plain if it didn't have all the stickers on it and all that kind of stuff. Plus, the stickers kind of make it look like lights in a building for a tower, and it's actually a city. So, some cool stuff right there. One more thing is that you can flip this gun around, which, for me personally, I don't know why you would do that. Like, why would you need to? I think officially, if you're converting it to the helipad, you do close the gun off. I don't know, but as much firepower as you can have in this, I think is as good as possible. You want as many guns as you can have. Not 6, but 60. If you remove the gun and you remove the knee pieces, you're going to find these ports that look a lot like the combiner ports for the G1. So what exactly does that mean? What does Scramble City mean? So you can plug in combiners, pretty much any combiner from back in the day. Probably not Predaking or those kinds of figures, but you could plug in pretty much most of these combiners. The 5, you can't do anything with Constructicons either. So, but with this, you'd say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, kids just want to do stuff, make more playability, do more with your figure. I mean, it just adds more bulk and beef and heft, and I don't know, it's just something there. Now, I noticed this when I was a kid. I thought it was slick and it was a hack for me, but then I put it all, I was like, I don't like that. So it's not like I did a whole lot with it as a kid, but as an adult, I can see kind of where they were going with this. But I don't know, there's a few things you could do to make it look kind of cool, and especially if you're a Super Superion fan and you just want to add a little flair. But at the end of the day, I kind of prefer it stock. So I hope you enjoy this look back at the Retro Wednesday look at Metroplex. And this is the G1 Metroplex. It's kind of cool. You can do so much with it. There's options for playability, interconnectivity, and it's just a way to display your figures or have a background for multiple different types of backgrounds or display. I didn't talk about the negatives. The negatives are the waist breaks pretty easy. Because it's made of white plastic, it tends to yellow. As you can see on mine, they have some yellowing going on. But aside from that, it's a classic. And if you get your hands on it and enjoy it, then I suggest you do. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And what else do you do with this Metroplex? What other options are there? Like and subscribe to Deer Maker out.
We're gathered here, as you know, to figure out if any of you Dinobots was involved in stealing Fort Knox and the Taj Mahal.
Grimlock says he sniffed lots of dinosaur transformed static at Fort Knox.
What the Tritacon? You had your last warning from me. Crash, Metroplex! That's a priceless treasure!
Did I say my brother's sheep and my nephew's roosters? Such fine roosters you never did see.
Hold your horn, Fairborn. We're sending Skylinks to break your jinx.